Radio Adelaide.
Hello there, it's 6 minutes past 10, and a tinge of irony in the book of the week this week, because shortly we're going to speak with Professor Luigi Fontana, and his book is called The Path to Longevity, How to Reach 100 with the Health and Stamina of a 40-year-old. The irony, of course, is that before 10 o'clock, we were talking about foraging for mushrooms, and yeah, amateur mushroomers can find themselves in a bit of trouble. So I can't emphasize enough that if you don't know what you're doing, do not go out and just experiment with mushrooms, because you might need some help from someone like Luigi Fontana if you want to get through to 100 as a result of that. As I say, the book is called Longevity, How to Reach 100 with the Health and Stamina of a 40-year-old. Luigi Fontana is described as one of the world's foremost experts on aging. His work actually is linked to the 5-2 diet, which I know you've had some contact with in the past, and he just has this fascination with using nutrition, mindfulness and exercise to get you through to as old as you can be. And certainly we live in an era now where we are living longer than we previously did, but I guess a lot of that is to do with sanitation and the way that our lives have changed in recent years. Luigi Fontana, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on on your program.
No problem at all. What I'd like to ask, sort of initially, why you sort of generated this passion for trying to give people tools to get through to old age. What prompted you to do this?
Look, you know, when I was doing my medical degree, and then, you know, when I was practicing medicine during residency, I immediately realized that I was not interested, you know, to spend the rest of my life prescribing the last antidepressant or statin or anti-cancer or incontinence device. And I asked to myself, there is a better way, you know, to approach medicine. That is not just to treat sick people, but to prevent people to become sick. And so back then I realized that, you know, the science was pretty contradictory and weak. And so I said, let me start to study that. And so I did a PhD. I did a fellowship in London for a year at the King's College. And then, you know, I did my PhD in US. And I spent 17 years of my life at Washington University in St. Louis at one of the top medical schools, working on nutrition, exercise, in slowing down aging and in preventing chronic diseases.
You write in your book that every day you see people who are suffering, who mistakenly believe, your words, that their chronic disease and emotional distress is due to bad genes or an unlucky roll of the dice. Isn't that the case with some people, that there is a genetic link to diseases that we have no control over?
There is, but these are minorities. Most of the common chronic disease, you know, obesity, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, many of the common type of cancers, probably even most of the common type of dementia, they are due to unhealthy lifestyle. I will say, you know, based on studies on identical twins, so basically twins that have the same genes, 20 to 25% of their probability to live a long or short life, or of developing some of the most common cancer, is due to genes. 70 to 80% is due to environmental factors.
So the key advice that I'm summarizing a 400-page book here, but the key advice here is really about calorie restriction, endurance exercise, metabolism, and also exercising your brain.
Yeah, you know, the message of my book is that, you know, longevity is a beautiful puzzle, is a jigsaw. It's not, nowadays, you know, we have all these fad diets, all these extreme interventions, and people, they get caught into this faith type of religion, or like sport, you know, I'm the fan of the Chelsea or whatever, you know, not understanding, that, to maximize our chance of living a long, healthy and meaning of life, there are many things we have to do and we have to learn. In some ways, like, if you say to a kid, don't worry, you become a doctor or an engineer just by studying a small book or, just studying grammar, no, there is a number of things, that we have to master to become proficient and then be able to do our job without thinking about it. And so in this puzzle, there are different components, definitely nutrition and calorie with the composition of the diet, because it's not just, when I started to work on this field, the dogma was that only calories were important. We know that's not true. The calorie, how you eat the calories, so the fasting, the time restricted feeding, and the quality of the calories, the proteins versus fat and different type of carbs, and I explore that in the book. And then there is different type of exercise. There are different type of ways to do exercise, that can improve our health, metabolic health, psychological health, our memory. Sleep is very important, how well we sleep. There are more and more data, it's very important for preventing dementia. Meditation, mindfulness, I think is one of the major problems. There is a lot of people who have mental issues. Mental issues is one of the major problems in our societies. There is a lot of anxiety, depression, and other issues, even in teenagers. And there is a lack of understanding of how what we do is influencing our emotional, psychological health, and even our creativity and our success in life. And that's what I've discussed in the book. And then there are other few things, about, what you should do, the screening, the vitamin D from the sun, and the smoking, and the alcohol consumption, and all the other stuff, where I take the best of science. My trip as a doctor, as a scientist across 3 continents, working, in some of the best institutions, and then my medical practice and my interest, it's been a 40 years old trip, in this field.
In some ways, is it also about geography? Because we know there are pockets of the planet where people do live longer than people elsewhere.
Yeah, there are examples like the centenarians of Okinawa and the centenarians of South Italy, Sardinia in particular, and few other areas where scientists have collected some data on why some population are living longer and healthier. For example, in Okinawa, there is one of the highest number of centenarians in the world, and people, they have a fraction of the disease, of the typical disease, cardiovascular disease and cancer and diabetes that, we see in other countries. And what we see is that even in these countries, because of the change in lifestyle, the more Western type lifestyle, now the number of centenarians is declining, and the number of people with multiple disease is increasing. And the problem is that this is unsustainable. There is a prediction in Australia that, not from me, from the government, that the healthcare costs in terms of GDP is going to double in the next 20 years. So who's going to pay for it? So my message is that we have a lot of power in maximizing our health and reducing the risk of developing diseases. With what we do, we can shape our happiness, our success in life. It's not due to, again, external factors, bad genes or bad luck. It's 80% of what happens to us is in our hands, and we have control of it if we know how to approach it.
10:15 is the time. We are speaking with Luigi Fontana, Professor Luigi Fontana, author of Longevity. This is our book of the week, How to Reach 100 with the Health and Stamina of a 40-year-old, which is a pretty big claim. Our lines are always open if you want to ask the professor a question, 1300 222 891, or you can text through 0467 922 891. There always does seem to be exceptions to the rule, though, doesn't there? Because via text, a texter says, my mother lived to 103. She smoked and had a few drinks, ate everything. There are always exceptions to the rule, aren't there?
Always, always. That's nature. There are few people that can run and win the Tour de France, but none of us regular people will never even compete in the Tour de France. You have to be born, with some special genes that allow you, to be a successful winner of the Tour de France or Giro d'Italia. There are exceptions in nature, but 80%, 90% of the population are following certain rules, and that's where my book is coming from. Because in US, what we did, we approached longevity from a different angle. So we studied in animals which pathways, which genes, which molecular pathways are important to extend lifespan and health span more than lifespan. And now we have a better understanding of why we age and how we can slow down aging and the accumulation of damage leading to multiple disease. And in the book, what I describe is how different intervention, lifestyle intervention, different type of food and how we eat the food and exercise and other mindfulness and breathing techniques and sleeping are acting on these metabolic and molecular pathways.
This is all about primary health, isn't it? You talk to any sort of health professional and they will tell you, I mean, at least the conversations I've had, they will tell you that there should be more effort put into primary health and preventing chronic disease rather than the effort that goes into treating it.
Well, that's not true. I give you a couple examples. There is the UK direct study where they randomize, where they enroll in this study people with type 2 diabetes, taking medication for type 2 diabetes. They put them on a lifestyle program with diet and exercise. After 1 year, 80% of the people with type 2 diabetes, they were cured. No more diabetes. They stopped taking drugs. And after 2 years, the people who lost more than 10 kilos of body weight, they were still without medication and cured from diabetes. There is another study, I give you a few examples. Another study in Cuba where they took people with fatty liver disease, it now is the major cause of liver disease due to obesity. Again, the people who lost that more than 10% body weight with lifestyle, basically 100% liver fat gone, and people who already had liver fibrosis, many of them, the fibrosis basically decline or went away. So that's not true. What we are describing is it also applies to the treatment of disease.
Okay.
The problem is that, just let me make a point. The problem is that, in our medical schools, and that's what we are trying to do now in Sydney, for many years, what we have been doing is to teach medical students to make diagnosis of disease and treat disease with surgery and drugs. So typically, I'm a doctor. We have been trained, to say, okay, if someone comes to you with symptoms, it tells you, I have a nodule in my breast, I have blood in my feces, I have chest pain. Then, we do a number of tests and imaging tests to make a diagnosis, and then typically we are trained to treat this disease with surgery and drugs. The problem is that many of these diseases take 20 to 40 years of unhealthy lifestyle before they become a disease. And so if we work before, we can prevent the accumulation of this damage leading to these diseases. But we have to change our way, and we have to go from a sick care health system to a real healthcare system.
Well, I think that's the point I was trying to make. The more effort on primary health and preventing the chronic disease rather than treating it when it's too late. Is sugar the enemy? And someone asked that by question. It's a fairly simple question. Sugar is an enemy, isn't it?
Look, what we really know is that all the refined process that, technically is called ultra-processed food is really one of the major culprits of this epidemic of obesity and type 2 diabetes and other diseases. So all this refined process is not only sugar, but all these, super refined flours, a lot of partially hydrogenated fat, trans fatty acids, salt, and all these excessive consumption of animal products, meat, it's impinging in increasing the risk of developing diseases, instead of we should eat more real food. So a lot of different types of vegetables, legumes, and whole grains, and seeds, and fish, and a glass of wine. We don't have to become vegetarian, but I think we have to really go back to a more plant-based and reaching high fiber, real food loaded with vitamins, phytochemicals, and stay away from these sugary, refined carbs, high animal products, processed food.
Can we take some calls, Professor Fontana?
Yes, of
Okay,
course.
let's do that. Bill at Mount Compass. Hello, Bill. How are you? Oh, Bill's gone. Alex, how are you, Alex?
I'm fine after listening to this wonderful man. I can't wait to read this book. A couple of things. Do you think, Dr. Fontana, that perhaps people in the past were living longer because they were brought up on good plain cooking and not a lot of it, and it wasn't microwaved? I do not own a microwave because I think it destroys the nutrition. And also, can you tell me how many weeks do medical students actually do on nutrition? Because I've heard that it's very limited, and it seems to me that the drug companies appear to have a heck of a lot of influence on our medical schools.
Luigi Fontana.
Yeah, so excellent questions. Thank you. So the first question is yes. Your idea is partially true. Basically, as I said, we moved away from cooking at home and selecting the best quality food, rich in vitamins, phytochemicals, and learning how to make them tasty. And so we go to a restaurant and we buy food without even asking where this food is coming from, the quality, what has been, how this animal has been treated, what they've been eating. So people, they are not mindful. So that's a very important point. The other one about the medical school, well, what I can say is that, being a doctor and being a professor teaching in university, I don't think, the problem is that, think about it, before World War II, we didn't have antibiotics. And so if you had tuberculosis or if you had a bad pneumonia, you had a probably 50 or more % chance of dying. And then, with science, we discovered antibiotics. Now, basically, most cases, with 1 week, 10 days of antibiotics, you are cured from a disease that was deadly, only 70 years ago. So I think, that, many scientists and many doctors, they are still hoping that, we are going to find a drug for each disease like we did for infectious disease. The problem is that, what we are discovering is that many of these chronic diseases, they are multi-component, multi-genetic, multifactorial, and it's going to be impossible to find a drug that is going to treat. What we are doing right now, we are keeping the disease under control. If you have diabetes, we give you 1 or 2 drugs that are keeping your glycemia under control. We are not curing you from diabetes, from hypertension. What we know is that, if you work with your lifestyle, some of these diseases are completely curable. But you need to know what you have to do. And that's what we are doing at University of Sydney. Now, I started to teach with other colleagues these ideas about how nutrition, exercise, and other lifestyle, by acting on these metabolic molecular pathways, can be used as medicine for preventing and even treating some chronic diseases.
Bill's back on the phone from Mount Compass. Hello, Bill.
Hello. Very excellent program. I was just going to make the point that the education system could step up here. And look, I was in a school where I led a daily fitness program, which back then was all the go. They were trying to get all schools to do this, and there's absolutely no doubt that the kids who were involved in that throughout their lives, every morning we had the kids out there for 20 minutes doing fitness, and many of those kids have now adopted good exercise, like the good doctors telling us, for their life. Now, if we could have got that right across all of the schools, look, you could save the country billions, billions.
Yeah. Bill, I think it's a reasonable point. Thank you, Bill. And Professor Fontana, just, the point that Bill makes there, I guess it's about sort of getting into those habits early, but it's also about being sort of self-motivated to continue them, isn't it?
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, the point that, Bill made is excellent. I think, I have a kid who is 11 years old, and he goes to primary school, and they have 15 minutes to eat. Normally they eat very quickly, some sandwiches, and then they when school is over at 3:15, they are so hungry they go to the one of these fast food, and they not my kids luckily, and they eat all this junk food, and there is no education. They know everything. They study grammar, math, everything, but they don't study all these important concepts, about how what we do in our life and how the mechanisms are working to improve their health, their psychological health, their intuitive health, creative health. And so I think it will be fundamental to start to develop some programs in primary, secondary, and even the university. One of the other idea we have at University of Sydney is that not only medical students should know about the theoretical and practical way to improve your health, but also law student, economic student, every student, because the future politician, the future officer, the future journalist, the future anything, they're going to come out of the university. And so if they know, if they have an understanding of these basic principles, we can transform the world, because we have the knowledge now really to save billions of dollars. In US, they spend $3.3 trillion a year in medical care, and 90% of these is to treat disease after they have developed with drugs and surgery. It's a waste. It's a waste of resources.
We could continue this conversation for quite some time. Just very briefly, if I can, you made the point about the time for eating. Is eating quickly a villain? Like, should we be eating more slowly?
Definitely. This is one of the points in my book. One of the tricks, to reduce your caloric intake is to eat slowly. If you eat slowly, there are studies, published in good journals showing that, people are eating less and they have less metabolic abnormalities. So eating slowly, talking with your family, not just watching TV, but, eating slowly, pause, talk, and chew your food quietly while you are talking with your wife or with your husband, with your kids. Should be something we should start do again, especially now with this COVID crisis that that we have more time to stay with the family, and to rediscover the importance of relationship, within family members, and the importance of social relationship, of quality food, quality time, exercise. It's very important.
Yeah. I'm a villain because I eat way too quickly, and I think that's probably from my military background, where you basically had a certain amount of time to eat and you just got in, you ate and you got out. Anyway, I'll try and slow down. We'll just squeeze a couple more calls. You got time to take a couple more calls, Luigi?
Yeah.
Okay, a couple more quick ones. Jennifer, hello.
Hello.
Yep. What were you going to ask about?
Yes, thank you very much. Just wanted to know what Dr. Fontana thinks about supplementing your diet with vitamins. We read that, B12 is very important for us, omega-3 is very important for us, vitamin C is very important for us, and not measured doses, just, sort of without measure, supplementing your diet with vitamins. What do you think about that?
Professor Fontana.
So this is a very important question. Well, so when I was a medical student, you know, in the late 90s, you know, there was this hype about supplementation. You know, it was, you know, super doses of vitamin C, vitamin E, beta carotene were very hot in science, in the medical field. And then, you know, we did a very big double-blind randomized clinical trial where, you know, we randomized people with cardiovascular disease, cancer, dementia to mega dose of vitamin C or vitamin E and beta carotene. And what we found that there is no benefit. In some cases, for example, in some studies where, you know, we gave vitamin C in people who were smokers, there was an increase in mortality. There's in a big New England Journal of Medicine paper. And other studies are suggesting, you know, that excessive amount of vitamin E as a supplement can also increase mortality. So my suggestion is that it's better, unless you have medical reason to do so, it's better to get your vitamin C from oranges, lemons, and cabbages, and, you know, having your omega-3 from healthy fish, you know, and some live flax seeds and some walnuts, and having your B12 from some fish again, you know, and some small amounts of meat, you know. So I think, you know, if you know where to find all these vitamins, you can have a better health, you know, first of all, because in this natural food, they are combined in the right proportion. And secondly, because these vitamins in this healthy food, they are coming with fiber and with a lot of other phytochemicals that probably, together with the vitamins, are responsible for the beneficial effect that we have been noticing in some studies.
Professor Luigi Fontana, thank you so much indeed.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me in your program.
The book of the week, the path to longevity, how to reach 100 with the health and stamina of a 40-year-old. Quick call from Tristan. Hello, Tristan. How are you?
Good morning, and thank you very much to the professor for a great conversation. May I finish it with this quote from Hippocrates? I'm not quite sure of the year,
Go on.
But it is this: "Let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food." We are currently spending upwards of 77 cents in every food dollar is spent on a processed food item coming from a box, can, or a packet. The human body and the human mind require, as the professor so duly said, real food, real living organic food, and that's it. So I thank you for your time.
Good on you, Tristan, and thank you.
Thanks, mate.
All the best to you. 27 to 11 is the time. You are listening to ABC Radio Adelaide. Next, we'll catch up with Phil Cooley, Chief Political Correspondent with the Australian Financial Review. And we might open up the lines inside this half hour as well. A lot of you had some thoughts on what former Victorian Premier